Hi everyone. Well, I'm really not finished talking about Anton Chekhov, but I am going to move on to The Lady and the Dog. Um, I know my hair's standing straight on end, so sorry about that. And I wish you could see my new Ruth Bader Ginsburg shirt, but can't get my camera close enough. I don't want to start messing with it. But on the screen here is a segment or PDF of the short story, The Lady with the Dog. And you had a nice introduction to that short story in your textbook. But the question I'd ask you is whether we can consider Anton Chekhov to be a feminist writer. And this story is very, very difficult, I think. When we start analyzing, of course, we want to look at Anna, but we also need to be looking at Gurov. And since the title is The Lady and the Dog, most definitely the focus is on Anna, but our narrator more narrowly focuses on Gurov and his growth throughout the story. And so I'm going to start out right now talking about Gurov's growth, and I'd like to highlight a few passages along the way. Again, I won't be highlighting everything that we could think about, but I just want to try, if I can, to make sure that you're noticing just a few things that Chekhov puts in. So let me highlight this opening paragraph for just a moment. And so this opening, people were telling one another that a newcomer had been seen on the promenade, a lady with a dog. Dmitri Dmitrich Gurov had been a fortnight in Yalta and was accustomed to its ways, and he too had begun to take an interest in fresh arrivals. So, well, I want to think about that for just a moment, because I don't know if you know that a fortnight is 14 nights or 14 days. So he's been in Yalta 2 weeks and considers himself accustomed to its ways, and this had begun to take an interest in fresh arrivals. Might mean several things. It might mean that he is, I don't want to say on the prowl, but most definitely he notices women. We learn he's a womanizer, though he early in the story he has contempt for them. And also there's a passe kind of thing here where he's a little bored already after 2 weeks in Yalta. So anyway, the lady with the dog is the focus. She's uh, he notices her several times, and then Gurov makes a statement. If she's here without her husband and without any friends, it wouldn't be a bad idea to make her acquaintance. Well, again, kind of suggesting that Gurov's interested in a sexual conquest. And then let's look at the next paragraph. He was not yet 40. He had a 12-year-old daughter and two schoolboy sons. He had been talked into marrying in his second year at college, and his wife now looked nearly twice as old as he was. So this part suggests, well, he had been talked into marrying. Uh, he did not marry for love or passion. Um, he just married and let himself be persuaded, and there is a note of resentment, or at least regret, in that he had been talked into. Anyway, his wife's a thinker, and in this early part, he doesn't really respect that. Um, he considered her shallow, narrow-minded, dowdy, and didn't like being at home. Now, this part, let's dwell on this just a little while. It was long since he had first begun deceiving her, and he was now constantly unfaithful to her. and this was no doubt why he spoke slightingly of women to whom he referred as the lower race. Well, if we started reading this short story and got just that far, we might respond resoundingly to that question, is he feminist? Oh, heck no. We've got a central protagonist here who has contempt for women and is screwing around on his wife, and almost as if like the affair is and the sexual conquest is an illustration of his superiority. And this line, as the lower race, well, of course, there's a mark of ignorance in that, right? But calling gender race, I mean, but very, very contemptuous, we get more of that in the next paragraph. He considered the ample lessons he had received from bitter experiences entitled him to call them whatever he liked, but without this lower race he could not have existed a single day. Without this lower race. So he's had some bitter experiences, and if we go back to his marriage, he had been talked into, it sounds as if he feels trapped in that. And the fact that his wife is a thinker with all of these opinions and ideas and so forth, that he doesn't like that. He doesn't like the being one-upped. And yet, too, we get in the same paragraph that he was bored and ill at ease in the company of men, but he felt so much better and at home with women, knew exactly what to say to them and exactly how to behave, and possessed an elusive charm, the line in just a little bit tells us, and then he knew this and was himself attracted to them by some invisible force. Okay, I don't really intend to read the entire story to you, but check this next sentence out. Repeated and bitter experiences had taught him that every fresh intimacy, while at first introduced such pleasant variety into everyday life and offering itself as a charming, light adventure, inevitably developed among decent people into a problem of excessive complication, leading to an intolerably irksome situation. Okay. Now, believe me, I know this isn't good, but I'm going to skip to the very end of the short story because, as you recall, plot, the couple has this affair, and then they part, and he thinks he's going to be so happy and free of Anna, and yet he cannot get her off of his mind, and intentionally goes back to meet her again, which is so uncharacteristic of him. And I'm sorry I'm taking so long to scroll, and I'm probably making you dizzy as a witch as I'm trying to get to the end of my short story without passing it. Okay, so here we are. So when they meet again and they get back together, and it's all acknowledged that they're so deeply in love that it's not just sex now, that he has grown to see Anna as a woman and as a human being and not as a lower race, then this intolerably irksome situation that he referred to before, he is thinking about it, and so we get this passage. Then they discuss their situation for a long time, trying to think of how they could get rid of the necessity for hiding, deception, living in different towns, being so long without meeting. How were they to shake off these intolerable fetters? How, he repeated, clutching his head. How? So anyway, my point right here is that the there is indication of character growth in Gustav, that he has moved away from seeing us just women as just objects to conquest, to seeing women with an interior life and personality traits and characteristics that do make them worthy of his affection and his longing. So, okay, well, too long, so long. Thanks a lot.